This is Stars and Scopes with your friend Uma, updated every new and full moon with guidance based on planetary transits in the current sky and extra support from tarot. For accuracy, take a look at your rising sign first if you know it, and do feel free to listen to your sun, moon and rising if you'd like the full picture. If you're interested in your birth chart, check out the readings page at umaruby.com, and if you'd like to support the work, head over to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and you can buy me a coffee. Finally, if you're a visual learner, look up Uma Ruby Tarot on YouTube and you can watch and learn. Okay, let's take a look. Hello Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the Solar Eclipse in Scorpio, happening on Tuesday the 25th of October at 9:49 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. I want to give this reading just a little trigger warning, Scorpio, and please, I won't be offended if you decide to tap out, and I'll see you maybe after eclipse season. But we are going to talk about things like grief and loss and sorrow in this reading. It's quite obvious to me that these are some of the topics that everybody needs to talk about. So if that's not what you need to hear right now, if that's not what you're feeling, by all means, I won't be offended and I'll see you soon. The sun and the moon are making their conjunction at 2 degrees in Scorpio. The tarot card for that point is the 5 of Cups that I showed you earlier. We're going to be using this card as an overarching guide to this reading. The 5 of Cups is grief and is loss. It's the moment of sorrow when having to say goodbye to something that meant quite a great deal to us. I feel that this is being protected, and there's almost like a force field around this moment in time, reminding us that it's really important to go there. It's really important to feel these feelings, to allow yourself to. Venus is also in Scorpio at 2 degrees. So the luminaries plus Venus are all at the same point in the sky when this eclipse happens. So as much as a solar eclipse is a kind of relinquishment of power, as much as it is a moment where we might find interference from our external environment that's rerouting our path, also I would feel protected in that at this time. I would feel really in good company, and that Venus, the planet of love and beauty and art and expression and freedom, is just freshly in your sign. So you've got a lot to look forward to as far as that influence moving forward. Scorpio, you are incredibly emotionally vibrant. And I wonder if I've said it to you before about that idea of being a fixed sign. There are 4 fixed signs: Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, Leo. All of those energies have an assuredness about them. There's a real confidence, and there's kind of like an immovability in some way. When it comes to Scorpio, to water, to emotion, this is where you rule. This is your head of the game. But think about fixed water. Fixed water is ice. Fixed water is rigid. Think of an iceberg and think about how we only see the top of such depth and such profound size. An eclipse in the first house, I can imagine, and if I trace back and think about when the last time there was a eclipse in Pisces, I could probably tell you, but I would imagine that there is something about your reason for being here that might be coming into question. There's something about self-confidence. There's something about alignment with the truer essence of who it is that you are that might be going through some difficulty at this eclipse. You might also be feeling that your relationships are going through something of a change as well, a changing of the guard. To have the eclipses play out in Taurus and Scorpio, which is going to happen until July of next year, for you, Scorpio, would be quite profound and quite full of things that maybe in some way feel out of your control, that there's been changes in the way that you relate to people, perhaps the lineup of folks in your life that you had once considered very dear to you, perhaps that's moved around a bit. And there's folks that aren't there any longer, perhaps there's new ones to enjoy. But what I want you to think about and what I want you to really go with is the idea that this reconfiguration is for your highest good. And I don't mean to sound like a hippy-dippy, but like as it lays, you're being encouraged, you're being urged to follow this path. Your your first house is being completely rerouted right now. And so I think that there should be enough space around you and given by those that you love for you to transmogrify, for you to emerge as the version of you that you would like to be now. That might be a little different to the way that you were before. There may be a shift in your values, a change in your perception, your perspective. What does life mean to you now as opposed to what it meant to you before? All of this is written in your chart, my darling. It's all written in the stars. And it can sometimes feel uncomfortable. That's growing pains. It can feel, especially if you're out of step or out of touch, or the lineup of your seventh house. Think seventh house is relationships. So seventh house is the commitment to others. How do you balance out your solo experience? That's the seventh house. So think about the individuals that take up that space now, and think about the changes that's gone through, and think about how you like that or not. Is the fresh version of yourself, this new model, is this being honoured by the folks that are in your seventh house? And did perhaps the plates have to move and the lineup have to change in your seventh because this new version of you was maybe displeasing to the other, or they didn't recognize? Can't be sure, but these are all questions to ask yourself right now as you're experiencing some of this grief too, because everything that we've just said comes with grief. It's natural. Loss comes with grief. And I think that grief is one of your superpowers, Scorpio. That level of emotional intensity, as much as it can be confronting for you at times, probably be really good for you to recognize that, astrologically speaking, you're the person to step up to that plate, to use a baseball term. I don't know why I did that. Let's have a look at your other tarot. So I got the Seven of Cups, which is another Scorpio energy. I think if you cast your mind back to May the 15th or the 16th, the first it was a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. I think it was the first eclipse that we experienced in Scorpio this round. And that was May of this year. So about 5 months ago. This was the energy, this sort of options were presenting themselves. If we relate this to your first house, your soul expression, perhaps 6 months ago there were options for you. There was different ways of being, or there was different potentials for emotional connection. There was different ways that you could relate, or I could send this message, or I could hang with that crowd, maybe. Skip to now, some of those decisions have been made, haven't they? Or some of those pathways have been explored and we find ourselves here at this moment. What tarot is really telling me quite strongly, Scorpio, is that you should be proud of your progress. Nothing is finished ever completely. So we're always progressing. We're always in our forward movement. We're going around and around and around. And there's a difference between that and there's a different and the mouse wheel, there's and getting stuck in a rut. I understand that different kind of thing we're describing. But the idea of failure is one that I'd like for you to come to terms with, the idea of the falsity of that notion. You're not a failure. You're brilliant and you're achieving you've achieved such growth through this last bit of time, these last years. Think about what the group's been through. Think about what human beings have been through and continue to go through. The structures of the old life are cracking and cracking and cracking. As much as we tried to jump back into the old rhythm before this period of time, the structures of capitalism, for example, the structures of wealth, the haves and the have-nots, how so little have the most access to resources, that's all coming to an end. And you as an individual have been able to deal with the upheaval of all of this. The isolation of a lockdown, the fear and worry and guilt of somebody else's mortality, of making somebody else sick, of the grief, quite literally, of perhaps loss in that way. The grief attached to identity dissolution. There's a lot of folks that really had quite a difficult time with their mental health these last years, and a real sense of washing away of identity. Who they once were, they couldn't be any longer. I wonder if this is what you've been experiencing, Scorpio. I also definitely know for a fact that if folks in your environment were dealing with that, then you'd be the person to go to. This is your expertise, Scorpio, as much as you may not realize it yet. When it comes to rebirth, when it comes to transformation, when it comes to diving to the bottom and coming up again, we all want a Scorpio in our back pocket to guide us through. I feel that there's going to be an emotional exchange for you really soon, Scorpio. There's going to be a freshness. This is a really juvenile energy, the Page of Cups. When I say juvenile, I mean hopeful. There's something about an emotional offering or emotional connection that's going to, as you're sort of maybe experiencing some of this grief and this loss and all of the things that we've discussed in this reading, bring up a lot of different emotions depending on who you are. So in that way, I hope that, you've not been triggered, but it's been a moment to really recognize your strength that you really have been through a roundabout. And on the other end of it, you've got something really lovely to look forward to. There's a nice offer here, a nice connection. More water, another water sign maybe, but there's definitely an emotional vulnerability and a willingness to start something fresh with you, Scorpio. Maybe in your 7th house, this actually, if we look at it in this way, perhaps by the full moon eclipse in Taurus that's lighting up your 7th house, there might be a new addition to the fold. A new friend. That could be beautiful. In esoteric astrology, I'm being taught that our rising sign holds the key to our soul's purpose. And each of these signs of the zodiac can be summed up in a sacred mantra. And I want to read it to you, if that's okay. For Scorpio, your sacred mantra is, warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. It's quite simple, but this is you in a sentence. A lot of folks come to think of Aries as the warrior, or when they think of warrior, war, whatever, they think of maybe Mars, the planet Mars, which is, is a ruler of Scorpio. But Scorpio is the warrior. Scorpio is the one that has looked death in the eye. Scorpio is the one that is fighting for all of our souls. And no matter what they do for work, no matter how they move about, that emotional intensity comes from love. You love so deeply, and that can be really confronting. And I want you to consider that from now on, maybe, as your superpower, as your warrior, your love. You are a warrior of love, my darling. And I don't want you to ever feel embarrassed about that. Things happen, things get said. It's all right. Whatever you are coming to grips with, you're invited to share that with other people too. All right, Scorpio, that's your reading, my love. I'm going to see you in 2 weeks for the lunar eclipse in Taurus. So this will be your 7th house, okay? This is the area of life of the other. So again, more eclipse shifting. So we'll check in and we'll see what's going on there. If you'd like your birth chart read, do head over to umaruby.com and book yourself a birth chart reading. But I'll speak to you in 2 weeks, Scorpio. Much love. Be tender, loving care is all you need at this eclipse, okay? Be gentle, 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 gentle. Love you. Bye.